cups of coffee, but I can't clear my head from what went down last night.
This administration, President Barack Obama, came into office thinking that the whole reason why we don't have peace with the Palestinians is because of the question of settlements.
Yeah, and that's not the issue. By the way, the Obama administration has lashed out at Russia. They promised they were going to do something. It took them a while to think this up, but they finally came up with it. He's issued an executive order against 6 Russian individuals and 5 Russian entities over election hacking. I don't know what that does to them. And he has kicked out 35 Russian intelligence operatives and shut down 2 Russian compounds in the U.S. in response to the Russian hacking. Vladimir Putin, in response, lit up a cigar, took his shirt off, and took a ride on his horse, because I'm sure he's not worried about it. Because Vladimir Putin doesn't play. And Barack Obama has huffed his chest out and done something that's going to have absolutely zero impact on the fact that somebody hacked into an unsecured DNC system and embarrassed the Democrats. That's what this is all about. Anyway, back to what we were talking about, which is the Israel, the Security Council resolution, what's really going on the ground over there. Kevin, with our caller Laura called in, she made a reference to the word Palestinian. You wanted to talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, the term Palestinian is really not a people group. The ancient maps under, I think it was Constantine or one of the other emperors of the time, that region was classified as Syria Palestinia. Okay? It was a name given by an emperor, from my understanding, but there was never a people of Palestinians, a group. So this is a name given to an area. So for us in the Midwest, it would be like saying, if you go to the Ozarks, you're going to deal with Ozarkians.
Yeah.
But there is no such people group as Ozarkians. So it's a misconception, because when the British Mandate came out in 1917, after World War I, when the Allied forces took that portion of the world from the Ottoman Turkey Empire, who had had it for 400 years. The Ottoman Turks had never actually settled or built a community or put anything there in that region of Jerusalem, where Tel Aviv is today. The British were in charge of creating a Jewish homeland. Lord Balfour created the Balfour Declaration, which said that they wanted to establish a Jewish homeland in their ancient homeland. So it was identified as the ancient Jewish homeland. The whole entire state of Israel and all of present-day Jordan is what was to be given to the Jewish immigrants to resettle back into that land. The French were in charge of what is today Lebanon and Syria. So the lines were drawn on the map and the portions were given out. By the time it all came back and forth, because the Arabs in that area protested that Jews were coming in, they gave 80% of the original land designated for a Jewish homeland to the Arabs of Palestinian. So basically, in 1922, I believe, they created a 2-state solution and gave the Arab population of Palestinian their own country called Jordan today.
Wow. That's a great history lesson and perspective that people don't understand. When we went into Iraq originally, in Afghanistan, I remember my wife's former history teacher educating us on the different ways that the Western world had tried to split up an area that was historically dominated by tribes who have been warring for centuries, and they don't really care about the new lines you've drawn.
Exactly.
And that's what it comes down to.
And this is a lot of what's happening with the Syrian civil war problem, that brought Russia into Damascus and all of the different forces going back and forth, because even amongst the Kurdish people in northern Iraq, you've got the PKK, which is one group of the Kurds, and another group of the Kurds. They don't get along with each other. So it's all of these tribal factions, like you said, across Iraq, across Jordan, across Syria and Lebanon. They've not gotten along for centuries.
No. And somebody like John Kerry deciding you need to be given this extra piece of ground, and the fact that you're not. I mean, I've had this discussion this week. Please tell me, because of your history of that region, tell me if I'm wrong. The 67 war that lasted, 7 days? 6 days? 6 or 7 days. 67 war. The 6-day war. What happened there was the Israeli army faced overwhelming odds against this defense pact that had been put together by Egypt and Syria and Jordan, with warplanes massed on tarmacs ready to take off and attack Israel. Israel attacks preemptively, basically takes out their air forces, at which point they had no air support at all for their troops.
In Egypt, yes.
And then Israel pushed forward a little bit. And it took those lands immediately along its border as sort of a buffer zone.
Well, you have to understand, Israel is a country who goes to war in self-defense.
Right.
That's why it's called the Israel Defense Force. It's all about self-defense. And in 1948, May 14th, 1948, Israel was declared a nation by the United Nations. And the very next day, the Arab countries surrounding it all went to war against them. And by the time the fighting stopped, there were armistice lines drawn where this is the line where we stop fighting. And people began to go back and settle in their communities. Those lines have become somehow borders in some people's minds, although they were never declared as international borders. The reason they were never declared as international borders is because the Arab nations around said, no, these are not going to be Israel's borders, because their intent was to keep pushing them.
Right.
So they never became borders. They're disputed territories. As far as international law is concerned, as far as my understanding.
So when the fighting stopped, that's what it was, and they've never given up beyond that. That's why it drives me crazy that they call them occupied territories. I don't view it that way. I view it as the spoils of war. And the fact that they now want to go back and change history is pretty amazing. There are a lot of people that don't understand that history. Kevin Howard is with me from the Christian Friends of Israel. And in our last minute or two here, Kevin, I want you to tell people, because I'm sure there are people in our listening audience who would love to support what you are doing over there in Israel. Tell them how they can do that.
Well, the easiest way to do that is to go online to our site, cfijerusalem.org. You can find everything you need there online to be able to help people in a tangible way. Our organization is designed to help those most in need over there. But it also is designed to help those who are victims of the terror attacks, the rocket bombings from Gaza, the Holocaust survivors, the new immigrants coming in, because a lot of them don't have a whole lot.
Right.
When the Russian immigration came through in the 90s, when not Vladimir Putin, but when Russia opened its doors and the Iron Curtain fell, the Russians came home, the Russian Jews. They were never allowed to leave before. And most of them were met at the border trying to get on a boat with whatever possessions they had, and anything of value was basically taken from them. So a lot of them came with 2 suitcases in hand and had nothing to start with. So we started programs to help the immigrants once they land.
It's a great effort. Again, the website is cfijerusalem.org. Kevin hosts a syndicated radio program himself that's broadcast around the country here in the U.S. You do that actually from Jerusalem, right?
We do, yeah.
I'm running out of time here. It's great to see you, my friend.
You too, Mark.
Happy New Year. We'll continue this discussion.
All right, sounds great.
All right, got to get to a break. I'll get to more of your phone calls, more coming up, and our man on the street right after this.
What went down last night? I know we both have our own little ways, but somehow we keep it.
This hour of the Mark Cox Show brought to you by Thomas Helbig, the official St. Louis financial advisor of the Mark Cox Show.
It's your last chance for the best prices of the year on 2016 Acura TLX and TSX sports sedans at Frank Lita Acura. Get 0.9% financing available during the season of performance at Frank Lita Acura. And come see the next generation Acura NSX Supercar now on display. Experience car buying made simple at Frank Lita Acura. Tesson Ferry east of 270 or franklitaacura.com.
Can't beat a leader. Stop buying rifles. I said it. Ever wonder why so many companies manufacture AR-15s? Because it's so easy, anyone